Welcome to the My House Podcast, a show about the past, present, and future goings-on at the My House Youth Drop-In Center in Wasilla, Alaska, with your host, Michelle Overstreet.
Welcome to episode 55 of the My House Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Overstreet, and today I'm joined by Rabbi Mendy. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And we really we can go all over the road, but what we talked about was just community engagement and the value of community members in all aspects of life.
Yes.
So,
would you like to speak about should we start with this event?
That would be wonderful.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. And it was a pleasure seeing your beautiful organization. This is really something very special that you put together. And, amazing. My hat off for that. And it's really, really beautiful and saving lives. And we're actually very proud that we're partnering together with you and My House to give this, to bring this event to the community. This coming Tuesday, May 6th, it's going to be in the Wasilla Public Library. It begins at 5 o'clock. The program begins at 5:30. It's an event for the entire family. Everyone could, all ages and stages in life could really benefit and enjoy this event. It's first and foremost, the name of the event is called Finding Emotional Balance in an Unbalanced World. It's a book signing and dinner. We're bringing the author all the way from New York. He's coming here. He's actually doing a book tour all around the world.
Wow.
He has been already in many, many places here in the U.S. and in other places throughout the world. And he's going to be speaking about this book that you have right in front of you, Letters for Life. And basically what it's doing is well, I'll step back a bit if you don't mind.
Yes, go.
So in 1950, there was the Rebbe, Rabbi Mendy, the most revered Jewish sage in the United States and the greatest Jewish leader in the last 100 years throughout the world. He actually escaped war-torn Europe in 1941. Many of his family members were killed by the Nazis. Many of the Jewish community obviously suffered from the horrors of the Holocaust. And the Rebbe assumed the leadership of at that time after the Holocaust, a very small Chabad Hasidic community in Brooklyn. And the Jewish spirit, even if people themselves were not actually survivors or their family were not survivors, but the Jewish spirit in the world was shattered in 1950. And there was very little hope. And little by little, there started going around this rumor that there's a Hasidic sage, rabbi, that accepts anybody that wants for private audience. 3 days a week, he would sit on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays and accept people for private audience from 8 p.m., sometimes till 5, 6 in the morning. And this went on for about 30 years. And there was no qualification. You didn't have to belong to a certain group or be of a certain status to be able to go in. Sometimes you have to wait a long line. I mean, sometimes you could wait a half a year to get in.
Wow.
But literally, from a teenager to a young mother to someone in a midlife crisis looking for a job, all stage and any situation. Obviously, there was also world leaders there, very influential people as well, talking about talking about national, international issues. But at the same time, many, many people were seeking his advice for day-to-day challenges in life, and not only in private audience, but also in letters. The Rebbe was known to receive the most mail in the United States after the president. Hundreds and hundreds of letters came to his door. And once the fax machine was invented in the 80s, the faxes didn't stop rolling in. And the Rebbe would respond. Today, there's about 12,000 of his letters already published, and thousands more still not published, in English, in Hebrew, in Yiddish, French, Russian, many languages. And a lot of these letters deal with the day-to-day challenges that each one of us face today in 2025. And what this author did in this book, Rabbi Shmutkin, who is going to be here, he's going to speak actually about his own journey in life as growing up and his own challenges. And actually what he's going to touch on is a big question that he's going to be asking, and that's hopefully this event will answer, is seemingly we're living in a time today that's more connected than ever. People are more, right, today in 2025, we could easily in a second. I have a sister that lives in Zambia, Africa. I don't know if I told you.
You didn't.
And, in just 1 second, I pull out my phone and have a live face-to-face conversation with her. This was unthinkable 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So today we're more connected than ever. And yet at the same time, it seems like we are more lonely than ever. They're more and more, especially I'm sure as you deal with the younger people, people are feeling lonely, people are feeling not cared for, people are feeling that they're alone in the world. And seemingly it's such a strange situation. From one hand, we're more connected than ever. Everyone is connected. Everyone is on social media. Everyone sees and knows exactly what everyone's doing. And yet at the same time, we feel so lonely and feel in despair and depression and overdose and God forbid, suicide and other terrible things. What's the explanation and how do we deal with that? So what the author is going to be doing is what he did in his book and what he's going to be speaking about at this event is how he himself turned to these letters, this reservoir of from one hand, ancient wisdom that's all rooted in the Torah, in the Hebrew Bible, in the Talmud, and Jewish mysticism, and yet with practical implication and application to people today dealing with the day-to-day struggles of life on a day-to-day basis. And he is going to explain how he thinks we can answer this question and a lot of questions that face many of us today from these letters. So I highly recommend people to come. I think it's going to be an extremely cool event and very inspiring and uplifting. It's not going to be a heavy event. It's going to be an inspiring event. He's going to be doing question and answers. And by the way, simultaneously during this event, there's also going to be a dinner. It's for free. Everyone is welcome. Just walk through the doors in Wasilla Public Library on May 6th at 5 p.m. Simultaneously, there's going to be a children's program with a ventriloquist show, with face painting, with balloon twisting, and much more being run by Thrive Matsu. We're partnering with them. They're going to run the children programs. So if you have kids and you don't have anyone to take care of them, bring them here. They can have a really great time while you hear the lecture and question answers. And and we're actually partnering with many organizations, obviously first and foremost My House, and other organizations that are bringing this event together.
So the name of the event is Finding Emotional Balance in an Unbalanced World. How do you feel the book, Letters for Life, how does this book address that theme?
Well, I think the answer, I don't want to give away the answer. That you're going to have to find out at the event, but I could give you some examples of what the book teaches, and I think that helps with many of us, a topic that many of us, I think, deal with on a daily basis. So there's a chapter here, I think it's chapter 9, about self-criticism. So many of us, we naturally have these self-criticizing thoughts about ourselves. And they bring us into a very bad place. They could put us in a very dark place, in a place of despair, a place of giving up. How do we deal with that? And what's fascinating, what the Rebbe does over here, he takes actually an ancient Jewish idea, a legal idea that's written already 2,000 years ago, which is, till a few hundred years ago, was accepted in most legal systems, that the greatest way how one can determine who is the criminal is by self-confession. I say, I did it. Okay, that's it. Only a couple hundred years ago did they start realizing that many times people will admit to things that they have never done because they were coerced to admitting. So therefore, they put in these things in place that you also have to corroborate evidence for the actual crime. But till this very day, even when you have evidence for the crime, how do you know who exactly was the criminal? And self-confession helps in most court systems. In Jewish law, it's not like that. In Jewish law, we're never allowed to accept someone's own evidence for self-confession to determine who's the criminal. And the explanation is why? Because a person is their closest relative. In Jewish law, when someone is a relative, they're not kosher, they're not a sufficient witness to witness on something. So if you're my cousin, I can't bear witness in court about you because we're relatives. You can't trust me. So we ourselves are our closest relatives.
Wow. And
one of the explanations to that given is just like each one of us are not subjective, we're not objective to say our own advantages and our own self-worth. Very often we can inflate our self-worth, we can inflate our accomplishments. So too in the other way, that we are also not objective to say our faults. That very often we paint a worse picture of ourselves than the reality is. The Rebbe took this idea and told many times people that wrote to him about how bad they are and how they're terrible their faults are and how they're just, they're a waste of time and bad, and the Rebbe would say that you are your closest relative. You cannot trust your own judgment about yourself. Because you paint yourself, very often it could be you're painting yourself, you have a worse painting of yourself than the reality is.
Wow. Wow.
And then he took that step another step further, which is in Jewish tradition, there's a concept of the evil inclination and the good inclination. Now, the evil inclination wants us to be destructive and wants us to destroy us, and the good inclination wants us to be good and be on the right path. Now, very often people think, the evil inclination is probably going to just tell you rob a bank, but in Hasidic thought teaches that the evil inclination is called the Klugenker in Yiddish, which means the smart aleck. In other words, he doesn't come and tell you rob a bank, right? He's not going to go and tell you something that's obvious that you would never do. But what he will tell you is he'll give you a whole speech and say, you messed up so badly and you fail and you have so many shortcomings, moral shortcomings. You're not worth it. You're not worth who you are. And, look down at yourself. And when someone looks down at themselves and they have such a bad picture of themselves, what good are they going to do? It'll just bring them down a very bad route. So the Rebbe would many times tell people when they write bad things and say bad things about themselves, the Rebbe would say, this is that really, first of all, it's not true. And it doesn't seem like you have a true perspective of the reality. And the fact that you're hearing these voices that everything is so bad and so messed up, it's actually your evil inclination trying to distract you from being who you really should be. And don't pay attention to those voices. So for instance, there was a teenager that actually had a very close relationship with the Rebbe, would speak to him in private and write letters to him, Rabbi Garari, and he wrote he told the Rebbe once that everything I do is for ulterior motives. I don't mean anything real. Anything I do, so to speak, good, is really not for the good. And the Rebbe said, it's not true. I know that you have done things for the real good reason, not just for ulterior motives. So obviously this voice is coming from the evil inclination. Ignore it. And the reason why the evil inclination is telling you this is because he wants you to stop doing anything. So that's his path. So just ignore it and continue doing the right thing. And in general, even if you're doing the right thing for ulterior motives, that will bring you to do it for the right reasons. Now, the question obviously could be is, how do you know if it's coming? At the end of the day, we do all have to perfect refine ourselves and make ourselves better. How do you know if something's coming from the right place or the wrong place? Maybe you're having real thoughts of trying to correct yourself. And that's actually one of the successes of these thoughts, because the idea is we tell ourselves, what do you mean? We need to better ourselves, right? So maybe self-criticism is a good thing. And the answer is, we have to look at the bottom line. Where are these thoughts taking you? Are these thoughts going to actually make you refine yourself and make yourself better and be more proactive? Or are they going to put us in a place of despair and less action,
right,
and paralyzation? And that's how we know that no matter how good or how true the thoughts of self-criticism could be, the question is the bottom line. Where is it leading us to?
Well, and that idea of shame not being a motivator and letting shame rule the decisions in your life is one that we touch a lot when it comes to recovery. We just talked about it a ton with Exit 12. It comes up in my voice all the time when we're talking with our clients and members of the recovery community. There is that emphasis on not listening to those thoughts and not allowing that to make decisions in your life. And then from an outside perspective, supporting members in the recovery community and by allowing them to see that shame or those mistakes are not the end all be all in their journey and in their life.
And that they have value in the journey, right? There's lessons to be learned and motivation that can come from not wanting to stay in that dark place or that place of kind of self-persecution.
Right. Yeah, and it sounds like folks that have read this book, and I am very interested and excited to dive into it. They're going to get a ton out of this event. For folks that aren't familiar with the event but are just interested or folks that haven't read the book but are interested in the themes of the event, what can they expect to get out of this evening?
Well, I think it'll be extremely interesting to hear from the writer himself about his own journey. He's going to talk about his own story and what brought him, how these letters really helped him navigate through his own situation in life. And I think they'll give it a much more personal touch. So when you take the book, it's not just some random book that you found, but you'll actually see the writer. You'll hear and see what brought this book and what gave birth to this book. And I think that the content that he's going to say, I think, really resonates with a lot of us today. There'll be a chance for question and answers. There'll be a chance for him to sign to get the book there and to sign your book. So I think it's going to be a really uplifting, and I think it's a really fresh perspective in the way how everyone's talking about emotional wellness today, emotional health, and I think it's a very fresh perspective on this topic. It's a topic that everyone is talking about. It's a topic that so many of us are paying attention to, and yet so many of us are actually suffering from one way or another. And I think it will give a very fresh perspective on this whole area.
Well, and that's an interesting theme because you're saying providing a fresh perspective, but in actuality, these letters are ideas that have been talked about for thousands of years, and also letters that themselves were written 75 years ago. And isn't that interesting that, yes. And as a minor in history, as someone that holds a minor in history, and I have to say that because otherwise, what was the point of taking that extra summer online class? I asked my counselor at the time, total sidebar, I asked my counselor at the time, well, what are you supposed to do with a minor in history? And she was like, I don't know, you have a minor in history. So as someone that is qualified to speak on this topic, and it is interesting how oftentimes looking at the past, looking at history can inform decisions and themes and problems that we are having in the here and now. That's what I love about reading about history, analyzing history, is that oftentimes, just like watching a good movie, you can look at some of those themes and apply them to a modern setting.
That's right. Yes. And actually, I think one of the things about this book is the letters were beginning to be written 75 years ago, but actually there are letters here that are all the way up to 1990. But what it is actually, as you're right, it's taking ideas that are already thousands of years old and applying them to the here and now of the modern time. And you'll see, I think very often, one of the things especially younger people always think that their problems are the biggest problems in the world, and they never existed before. No one could understand me, right?
And there's nothing new under the sun.
Right? There's nothing new under the sun. And you see that this, people had the same issues, the same problems, maybe not with the smartphone or with the iPad, but things are very similar, very, very similar feelings. And I think it could really, really help a lot of us. Every time I pick up the book just in the last few weeks and read it, I'm like, wow, this is just amazing stuff.
I'm so happy to be partnered with you on this event and in the community. I really think that, today a lot of I want to use the word rhetoric, a lot of the rhetoric that you hear about wellness isn't really founded in faith. There's an exercise component, and there's yoga, and there's all these different things that are part of this sort of mantra of wellness. And I really love the idea that you have a faith opportunity to engage in this thinking and conversations around the community that give an opportunity for a unique perspective, but also a community that maybe you didn't know about before. I really appreciate that fact, and thank you for coming in and allowing us to be part of it. I also really love the idea that one of the things that we have is a youth advisory board, and a lot of those youth I've had conversations with that are like these letters, where they come in and say, but what about, right. And I really love the idea that the letters are the book. Yes. I think that's such a clever way of couching all of that knowledge and wisdom and information in a really user-friendly format, and that you could take little bites and read a letter at a time and then kind of think about it or talk about it with a friend. And I'm already thinking about a book club. Wouldn't it be fun to do a book like this with a book club?
Yeah, I agree.
And so I'm so grateful. Thank you for being part of our world and for allowing us to be part of the event. And I know we have a lot of youth that would really benefit from being there.
Yeah. And as we close, just one more time, the event is May 6th. That's a Tuesday night, and doors are opening at 5. And Correct. So if you want to make sure that you're there for dinner and maybe have some time to eat, you're advising that folks show up early to get that meal so that they have Correct. A full stomach and a mind that isn't hangry while they're digesting all the information.
That's right. And at Wasilla Public Library, And if you come earlier, maybe you'll be able to have a personal conversation with the author himself, and that would be cool.
That'd be really cool.
Yes.
Fantastic. 5 o'clock, Tuesday, May 6th.
Wasilla Public Library.
Wasilla Public Library.
Be there.
Be there.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so much
Rabbi
for having
Mendy.
me,
I
yes.
hope you'll come back again.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And the My House podcast is recorded at the My House studio in Wasilla, Alaska. Our producer and editor is Ozzie Keener. I'm Michelle Overstreet. Until next time.